let me go on to. Okay, I'm just going to set my iPad up as well. And Dan, if you let me know when we're recording.
Yep, we are recording, so we're all good to go, Gemma.
Brilliant, thank you. So welcome everyone to our third session. This one is all about using technology as a communication tool, and you've got myself and Dan as normal, but we're also joined with Virginia from Hillview Primary School today, who's going to be sharing with us some of her examples of using technology as a communication tool. Oh, oops, Daisy. So the main aims of this session is that we're going to be, it does follow on from previous CPD sessions. So where we have looked at riding the wave from remote learning and then really integrating that technology into a classroom. A lot of our work does build on research by EEF, and it should hopefully give you some practical strategies and tools to then use in your practice both now and in the future. We do hope that there's something for everyone. There aren't many people on the call today, so if you have any questions, feel free to raise up your hand, pop it in the chat box, or do just ask us questions and share your good practice as well. And it's that favourite saying of mine, riding the wave and keeping that momentum going. So the way that this has been designed is that it's taken from 3 strands of this EEF document. It's looking at those strategies to support learning at home, looking at the positive dialogue, and then also that more intensive support where needed. So we've then taken this and broken it into 3 sections. We've got our day-to-day communication, our supporting learning at home, and then our encouraging positive dialogues about learning. So the first tool that we're going to share, and it's going to be very, very brief on this one, is our day-to-day communication, is forms. We just wanted to put this in because we've all been using our forms for our quizzes. We're beginning to integrate those within the curriculum, but actually they're going to be a fantastic tool in September for our parents, for your start of year forms, your new starter forms. If you're doing your ad hoc parent surveys or questionnaires outside of Edurio, and then also permission slips. So I was working with a school earlier this week, and for their extracurricular activities, they've created a wonderful sway. And at the bottom of that, they've put a sign-up form by using Microsoft Forms. So it's in one integrated element of technology, just to support that communication. And it means that it can be shared with anyone electronically, QR codes, in a letter, via Facebook if that's what they use. And it just prevents that whole paper trail of going back and forth. Dan, do you want to talk about the next example of day-to-day communication for us?
Yeah, sure. So this is using OneDrive to request files. Now, it's not something that we've used a lot, although in the first kind of phase of lockdown, it certainly was an idea we shared. But basically in OneDrive, if you create a folder in your OneDrive, under the 3 dots, one of the options is to request files. And that what this enables you to do is to basically send a link, a bit like Dropbox, but in the secure Microsoft OneDrive, to request a file from a parent or a colleague or anybody else. So you can see on this screenshot here, next to the 3 dots, the folder can say request files. You then give it a title. Maybe you want to collect some reading record, or you're asking for some document from parents or some photograph. Maybe you're doing a display about grandparents or the locality, and you want to kind of tap into the rich diversity that the children and the parents can provide. So you can make this a title for any kind of thing you're collecting. This happens to say reading challenge, it could say local history, it could say grandparents or whatever. And then once you've requested those files, what happens on the next slide, we can see that your end user gets a simple link, which could be emailed to them. You can copy the link and email it to them, and they just then say, upload their file to that folder that you've requested. And you can also turn it into a QR code. So there's lots of QR code generators. So as soon as you've got a link, it can be a QR code, which they simply scan, and then straight from their tablet or phone, they can upload the file. And on the slide there, you will find a link to a little video tutorial that will just take you through those steps, but it's really easy to use. So every time you want to collect stuff off parents or outside parties, think about, that OneDrive requesting files. It might just be a really easy workflow to get hold of things.
Thanks, Sam.
I'm now going to just talk a little bit about the Arbor app, and I'm going to use Virginia just to kind of bring it to life as well. As you probably know, we are transitioning away from older MIS systems like SIMS to a cloud-based one, and the one we've chosen for our academies is Arbor. We're probably about 70% through that transition now, so most of the schools have actually moved, but there's still a tranche. I think the last tranche is in September or that autumn term where they're going to move. And by transitioning to a cloud-based system, we have been able to kind of get some of the functionality there across all schools, one of which is that kind of communication aspect. You can use Arbor for messaging and for parental portals. So it's a tool that all schools are going to have. There's a mobile app that parents can have, and it can simplify your communication systems, and you don't have to buy that third party parental mail, or I know schools have used things in the past to try and do that text messaging, that communication piece. That's built in with Arbor. If we just jump to the next slide, it'll just show you the parental portal. And at this point, I'll just get Virginia just to say a little bit about how they're using it at Hillview.
Yeah, we've been using it for a few months now. Transition to Arbor is really easy, actually. It's a new thing, but it's very, very intuitive. We use it for everything from registers, really easy to do. You've got all the pupil photos down the side, so if it's supply cover doing it, it's really easy to know who the children are. We use it for booking school lunches, for monitoring behaviour now actually as well, in terms of behaviour, positive behaviour, and also poorer choices as well, so we can communicate how children are doing at school to parents more directly and more consistently through the year. It's really helpful for attendance monitoring, so you can see, as you can see on the dashboard there, you can see your average attendance and attendance of individual pupils, but also booking parents' evenings and doing payments. It's pretty much a one-stop shop and very easy to use.
Yeah, thanks. And then on the next slide, we've just got some kind of general information that you could share with parents, just to kind of explain all the different aspects. Obviously, it's up to schools to decide which of these aspects they want to deploy, but it just shows the capability of Arbor in, it covers all those different, day-to-day communication, needs, whether it's about attendance, behavior, and so on and so forth, booking parent profiles, as Virginia said. So, a really useful app that we've already paid for, so we might as well use to the, to its fullest. And I think the next slide is just a few kind of guides and links. So, whenever you kind of roll this out and you inform parents, you may want to put together a little, I don't know, sway or newsletter where you can just show the link, so parents can quickly adapt to it. As Virginia said, it's quite intuitive. You're not going to need half a day's training for parents for them to use it. They'll pick it up really quickly. But I think it's very useful just to point out at this stage that it's if you haven't got it, it's coming soon, and start to use it on that regular basis.
Brilliant, thanks, Dan.
Yeah, and we've got actually Caroline on the call, so thanks very much, Caroline, for joining us tonight, and also for being instrumental in sharing some of the really good practice that's happening at Hanwell Fields in terms of the effective use of their EYFS platform. So this video, which I'm not going to play through tonight, but it's embedded on the slides, and these slides will be made available more or less as soon as we finished the recording. It's a really interesting interview that Caroline herself actually conducted with Lou and Dave from their early years team. And they go through in detail about some of the innovative things that they're doing with Tapestry, which is their early years platform. Other early years platforms are available to build a profile, Springs to Life. Some schools use them, some schools don't. But if you have got one, then why not use it to its full potential? And I think some of the highlights for me when I watched through this video was the two-way aspect of communication. It's not just about the top down from the teachers, here are the instructions or whatever. It was very much a two-way thing where pupils and parents shared the achievements of their children at home. And that gave a totally different insight. So I think I remember them saying that, certain children may not talk very much in the classroom environment, but at home, they're totally different. And you can see that side of them and get that insight into their home life and what they're achieving at home. Another thing they were doing was, again, which I thought was really innovative, was sharing their own videos of how they're teaching or approaching things. So the teachers get to see them, in the classroom, how they teach, whether it's an aspect of phonics or an aspect of number, but it can be really helpful for parents to see that approach, and then hopefully they can consolidate that with their children at home. Another nice innovative feature was this book club idea that they've got, which I thought was a great idea. So they'll have some set books or text that they use with the children. They can group the parents into a kind of a mini book club where parents can talk about the book, exchange ideas, maybe, or how they're going to follow it up at home, or some games they'll play based on the book. It's just a way of engaging parents in the kind of the reading and the book work that's going on in school. And I thought it was a really nice quote there from Lou, and she made the point that it's a little window in the world for the parents, and they really get to see what it's like in school. And it may be very different from when they were at school, and they get to see that the teachers are actually real human beings, fun and approachable, she said. And it's all part of that breaking down the barrier and giving those parents the insight into their child's school day. So I'd really recommend you have a good look at that. I don't know, Caroline, as you're on the call, is there anything you'd like to kind of add to that? Please do chip in.
I think it's that connection with parents too. I know that certainly over COVID, our relationship with parents improved dramatically. And I think almost capitalising on that, this platform enables us to continue with that relationship in a really positive way, but also share their expertise. I think sometimes you can seem that early years and reception is just playing, but these guys are incredibly skilled at what they do, and that precise language they use and the modelling that goes on in the quality tapestries that they produce, I think has been pivotal in the minimal disruption to our early years. Yeah,
great. Thanks very much, Caroline, and thanks again for sharing that. And I say we would recommend everyone just review that video. It's only about 8 minutes, but it gives you a real insight into what's happening with the use of that platform in particular.
Dan, can I just jump in there for a few seconds just to add some sort of qualitative data in terms of the impact of that strategy? In a recent visit to Hanwell Fields, it was really clear to me that actually the communication between home and school has enabled those pupils to come back into the reopening, or the full reopening as of the 8th of March, in a stronger position than in some of the settings that I've been in, and certainly in terms of their understanding of the phonics approach and language and communication. That was much deeper and much richer for many of those young people than, as I said, it has in some other settings. And some of that is definitely down to the fact that this homeschool link has been set up and has continued to embed that practice.
Yeah, thanks, Matthew. That's really useful to underline that it's having real impact, not just for parental engagement, but for the outcomes of the children. So that's great to hear. Thanks, Gemma. I think we'll move on.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. And thanks, Hanwell. So moving on, we've been looking at that day-to-day communication, and now we're going to look more at that supporting learning at home. Now, one of the ways that we can be doing this is with live events via Teams. And we've all been in these where we've been to a John Coles event where he presents and he's who we can see, we can ask our Q&A. There is a new option that's just out called Webinar, which is kind of like a halfway house between your normal Teams meeting like this and the live events that we go to with our town hall style. I haven't explored that yet, but it is something we're looking at. Now, the great thing about Teams live events, I always particularly use them for parent workshops or when you're doing large assemblies. So it's when you just want to be able to present some information, but still have a Q&A going on. It's great because actually they can't see each other. So yes, you've got less interaction, but if you're presenting and trying to share information, it's really clear and easy that way. The parents don't have to log in. So to be able to access a live event, you generate a link for them and they can access it that way. And it's automatically recorded for you as well. But you do have to make sure that your public permission is set at your tenancy level by the Teams admin. And the network managers are used to doing this for you. Now, another great thing about the Teams live events is that you actually create a producer and a presenter, as well as having the guests. And I was fortunate enough to be in the green room the other day as a producer. And so you can all see each other. And it means that actually you can help set up your materials to have them ready. And then everyone at home outside that's watching would just get to see the main screen. Now, what you do need to make sure is that you do practice before, because there is a delay when you're running a live event. There's about, I think it's down about 10 seconds delay.
Yeah, exactly. It is exactly 10
seconds delay. But that Q&A element is also really, really successful, and you don't have the same limit of number of people that you can invite. So I have included a little link down here more about the Teams live events. But then that leads me on nicely to back to our 365 platform with Dan and Class Notebook.
Yeah, so the Class Notebook found a few followers during the initial lockdown, and subsequently in kind of the second lockdown, it found a few more followers. And I think Jen Reynolds was quite instrumental in promoting it, because we looked at how we could use it for reading records, because obviously there was a concern that children weren't being heard or needed an audience for their reading aloud. So we looked at how we could use sort of Class Notebook in particular to kickstart that. But I think other schools have looked at it and have started potentially to use it as a general workflow tool as well. And one of the things you can do if you are using Class Notebook is set a parental link, so the parents can either see a combination of the content you're sharing, i.e. the lesson content, and also what their children are doing without seeing any other children, obviously. So if you go into Manage Notebooks, we'll go on to the next slide, you can see once you're into Manage Notebooks, it's quite straightforward to generate a parent or guardian link. You can click on that to generate it. You can choose whether your content library or student notebooks. You may just want, the parents to see the content, i.e. the main presentation material, learning materials, or you may want them to see their individual work. And then once you've done that, you can either create it for an individual student, if there was just one student in particular you wanted to do this for, or more likely all the students, where you would generate a whole set of links. And the next slide just shows what those links look like. If I had a class of 30 children, I'd export those links as a CSV and then send them out, possibly via Arbor or possibly via email, whatever communication system you're using. And then those parents can then see, into their child's section of the notebook or see the content library. And that could be very useful if you're using Class Notebook. There is a little video there on YouTube that takes you through all the steps. It's not difficult. You just need to make sure that your external sharing is on. But again, your IT admin can help with that, or we can help them if they're a bit stuck. So if you're using Class Notebook, think about parental access to that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Dan. So the third part of our EEF research today was looking at encouraging positive dialogue. Now, sticking with the 365 platform, we do have the feature of bookings. And when you first enter the bookings page, it reminded me more of when I was back in like an admin role when I was working from a business perspective. But actually, when I then worked with my head to set it up, it became really, really useful because it actually, as well as it being cloud-based, obviously uses our Teams account and our Microsoft account, it aligns with my calendar. So the options that the parents could choose, if I was already in another meeting, they wouldn't be able to book that slot. Similarly, if I decided to set myself a little tea break in between, like a little 5-minute get up and stretch my legs, I could block that out in my own calendar and the times would adjust around that. Now, the great thing is that because it's free as part of our license, you don't need a DPIA, and parents can actually sign up without needing their 365 login, which I know for myself was really, really useful because my parents just had to follow a link. And 2 parents, so like for myself, even growing up, my mum and my dad could both have 2 different links, even though they're different households, and be able to attend my parents' meeting. Another great thing that I loved about using this, and I've done this from both a teacher side and setting it up, is that you can assign a 5 or 10 minute rule on the meeting. Now, as opposed to when, I'm sure we've all been there, when you're going like, oh, yeah, and you're trying to stand up at your desk and you're like, yeah, oh, sorry, I need to go. I can see Matthew's laughing there. We've all been there. And you've got a queue of people outside. Actually, it does cut you off. So you do get a notification, but it does automatically close. So it ends the meeting and you don't have that risk of then overrunning. But you do need to explain that to the parents first of all. And you do get the notification of like, oh, yeah, time's coming up. This is where we need to go. Now, as well as that, actually the parents are in control of the booking. So one of the tasks that I always found tricky as a teacher was like when you got siblings as well. So you have to run between different teachers and see, oh, I'm seeing Dan's parents at 5 p.m. Oh, well, I've put them in for 5 p.m. But actually, because the parents are in control, they then sign up. You don't need to send slips back and forth and number them in the way that they come in and lose a piece of paper. Actually, it's all done within this platform. And it also gives you the flexibility in days and times. The way that we're moving now, it might be that it might be Key Stage 1 parents evening, Monday, Tuesday, Key Stage 3, Key Stage 2, Wednesday, Thursday, but you can have different days, different times for individual teachers. So it really does promote that flexibility. Now, I have included a webinar by James, the links in here for you, but just to show you what the parents will get. So the parents will receive the link. They then choose which date they want to come, and these are all greyed out because that wasn't available. So for this teacher, they could only choose these 2 days. They select their teacher. The times that show up in here are only the ones that are available. So say if Virginia had come in and she'd booked 16:40 for her child, that wouldn't be available then. Then the parents enter their child's name, because you can put your own special requests and you put details, and then book, and that automatically blocks out your calendar as a teacher or a member of staff, and also gives them a link. It automatically generates the link to the meeting for them. Now, I don't know how many people are using bookings, but when I was speaking to Joe Jackson-Taylor at Avonwood, and I think Chris is on the call, so he might be able to speak a wee bit more about this. Joe was actually telling me about the fact that they use School Cloud, and actually a lot of our secondary schools have been using this as well. And it's just as magic. There's Chris for us. Chris, I don't mind. Sorry to put you on the spot. This wasn't rehearsed.
Hi Gemma. Yeah, we've used School Cloud as for our latest round of parents' evenings, and it was really, really positive. Staff loved it. All the parents got their nice little 10-minute window. They could self-book their appointment slots. It just worked like clockwork, really. The negative, of course, is that parents aren't able to look through books in the way that they traditionally would, but we're planning to stick with this for next year, but to get around that by having kind of open afternoons when the parents will come in and look at some of their bits and pieces instead. So it was kind of a unanimous plus from us, really. We think it's really good and hopefully something that will stick around for some time.
Brilliant, thanks Chris. And was it quite easy? So Joe said that it did integrate with Arbor, so that was obviously a lot of reducing workload for you guys as well.
Yeah, it was straightforward. A couple of parents, I think sometimes you just have to go that extra mile and give them some help over the telephone, really. But it was straightforward to do. Joe might tell me off for saying that afterwards, but as far as I know, it was quite straightforward. I think it was really good value as well off the top of my head. I think it might have been something like £500 for a school of 570 children for a year, which seemed really good value to me.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris, for that. So that now leads us on to finally our guest speaker for today, Virginia. This is broken up into 2 parts. It's all about the positive dialogue. and it is going to be featuring Sway. So I'd like to hand over to Virginia now, who's going to share some examples of how she's been using Sway more for that positive dialogue, not just as a teaching resource. Thanks, Virginia.
Great, thank you. Thanks so much. So yeah, primary purpose of this is just having a look at some of the research behind communication with parents, mainly from EEF. So EEF consistently say that levels of parental engagement are associated with better academic outcomes. Lots of us talk about wanting to get parents in and engaged more often, and that's been really difficult before COVID as well, but COVID has made that even harder. If we've got really well-designed communication, we can definitely have a positive impact on attainment and attendance. It's research backed that we want to do that, and the impact might seem quite small actually, but it's really low cost using Sway. It's it's inbuilt into Microsoft. Most of us know how to use it as well, and it's a really easy way of getting that wider engagement, especially with those who might not normally interact with school that easily. Perhaps parents of children with SEND needs or EAL families as well. There's ways of improving that engagement further. It can help to promote positive interactions and celebrations as well. That's really, really positive. That's something that parents tell us repeatedly that they want to see. And much more visually engaging than a traditional newsletter, saves on paper as well, environmentally. We can use a real mix of media too. You can use videos, embedding film into there and photos, and anything you like really. Really foster that closer connection with parents, especially in a year when face-to-face connection has been really, really limited, when parents might not have ever met their child's teacher face-to-face. You can, as Gemma said earlier, embedding forms in there to get really fast feedback. Encourages that two-way communication so that parents are having to give back to us as well, and we can really develop that relationship that we've made over COVID time. And then I've just put the link into the EEF's guidance on effective parental communication there, which will be in the slides too. Okay. So on the next slide, yeah, it's coming, there it is. Just got some a little bit teeny tiny, you can have a little bit of a closer look at those in a minute. Just some images of what we do at Hillview in terms of sending out information. So our prospectus is online in a Sway, a much more cost-effective way of doing that than having something printed and designed. Sway does it all for you, as you know. You can share all your wider information, loads of different things that you can share with parents, new entrants information, school achievements, individual achievements, homework praise, and also appeals for resources as well. You can see all the metrics on engagement as well, so you know when parents are really interacting with your with your Sways too. Parents love seeing photos of their children. I've found that out repeatedly. They love to see them in there. Just make sure that you do ask for that parental consent at the start of the year, and check those photos really carefully just in case somebody has opted out. Okay. And for engaging parents that perhaps don't interact so well, may not have much confidence in interacting with schools, parents new to the country or with limited English, or parents of children with SEND might have needs themselves. We offer a translated newsletter as well, translated version in multiple languages, so that parents can really feel involved. And we offer an inclusion newsletter as well. So that we're really making all members of our school community feel like they're involved in everything that's going on at school. Really, really helpful for giving those parents tips, specific guidance on what they can be doing with their children at home. And those can either be embedded within your whole school newsletter as a landing page, or as a separate link as well, and then posted to your website or emailed out to parents, or however you're choosing to communicate with them. This is some screenshots from our EYFS newsletter as well. Really important to get that early engagement with parents, with regular, clear communication from nursery and from FSR. We know in our school that our parents are very, very keen to engage at that point in time, but perhaps don't necessarily know how to help their children best. So here is the place that you can promote that shared book reading with videos of teachers reading with YouTubes as well, videos embedded in there, book suggestions, lots of tips and support and resources, making it really a one-stop shop for your parents to find out everything that's going on in early years. And it makes those home activities much, much more effective perspective as well. Really good idea to share your past and future learning as well, so parents can see what children have been doing in the past week or the past month, and also resources to help for the next unit of learning too. Gets those parents really, really well involved. So a couple of quick tips for creating your newsletter. I know many of you know how to use Sway, have done it a million times by now, but just a few things. Try uploading your letterhead from your device as the background to the title card. That looks really nice when that's done, and it's very, very obvious that it's from school. And just a few screenshots of doing that, how to do that there. And just make sure when you've got that on there, make sure that the entire image is selected. That just makes sure your whole letterhead is visible when it's viewed. So I think in a minute we'll see what it looks like when not. Yeah, it kind of comes up very, very large otherwise, and you don't get the whole thing on there. So you want to make sure that whole image is visible there. And then it will look a little bit like that. And then you've got your letterhead there, looks really professional, and it makes everything consistent in terms of your communication from school. Just adds a heading underneath the title card as well, or it will appear on top of your letterhead. I found that when I was making sways for during lockdown, just put the title underneath, so you have the letterhead at the top or the image at the top, and then the title underneath. Otherwise, it superimposes itself on top of your letter heading. If you want to put your class or year group newsletters within a whole school sway, then you can just add a group and put a stack or a grid in there, so that you have an initial landing page and then embed them within. You can see underneath that you've got year 1, year 2 and so on, so parents can choose the right newsletter. It's just a nice place to have a kind of communal space, and then parents can find their relevant information within that newsletter. So just play around with styles for when you're creating that. Try and think about keeping it clear and easy to read. I think some of those designs can be a little bit busy for parents, so try and keep it nice and clear and consistent as well, so everybody using the same design for their newsletters. It just looks much more professional and easy for parents to know that this is a message from their child's school. Think about whether it's vertical, horizontal, or whether you want it as slides. I like vertical. I think it's easier for parents to scroll through, and it's easier on a phone as well if they're looking at it on a smaller device. Try not to make it too long, because we want key messages communicated. Otherwise, parents will miss things. We all do it when we're scanning through a long document, that not everything gets taken in then. Do make use of your photos and videos, but check sharing rights of YouTube clips or anything else. Parents usually enjoy those photos of their children the most, I find. And consider using the voice recorder function as well. You could be assisting your parents with limited literacy skills, or EAL parents as well, just to help everybody, again, feel involved in what's coming out of their child's school.
Brilliant. Thanks, Virginia. Now, Virginia is going to continue for us, because I had a little thought about student-led portfolios of work. And so me being me, approached Virginia. I was like, Virginia, I've got this idea. I don't really know how it's going to work. Can you just go and have a little play and come back to me, please? And of course, Virginia, being the sway lover that she is, fully embraced this. Following a conversation, was like, yep, of course, Jem. And here we go. So the birth of the student-led portfolio. Thanks, Virginia.
Yeah, it's a really lovely idea. Thanks, Gemma. Really nice way for students to create a portfolio of work to share with parents or other students or anyone else in school, in fact. And I was a bit daunted initially by the prospects. I've done a lot of training on Sway, but really I shouldn't have been, because it works very, very well with children. It's very easy for them to learn, even for your younger children. I mean, I'd suggest Key Stage 2 upwards, but you could have a dabble in it in Key Stage 1 if you keep the skills very, very, very focused, and perhaps if you've got a lot of adults around to assist. And it teaches those really valuable computing skills at the same time. I'm a big fan of integrating computing into the whole wider curriculum, and English and maths as well. And this really does that job. There's a real purpose there behind that learning too. My children very motivated by having a proper purpose for what they were doing that they could then share and take home as well. It's easier on a laptop with a rear-facing camera, like the Surface Pros that a lot of us use are very, very easy to use, but an iPad will work just as well. If you've got Chromebooks that only have front-facing cameras, it's still equally possible. It's just a bit trickier with the photos, but that's just something to note. And here's a few lovely snaps of my some of my children working on their sways, their little projects. In terms of the content, photos of work really, really well. Screenshots of their Teams assignments or just copy and pasting text from Teams. Children have access to all of that, so they can put that in, anything they've been particularly proud of. They can add videos of writing performances, them talking about their own work as well. They really like doing that. Or vlogging as well. It's another purpose for writing. You could add whole group activities, such as a video of performed play or a song would work really well. That could then be uploaded to Teams and children add it from there. Favourite books and recommendations, love that. Reading a favourite part of a book aloud. If you've got a class novel that you've been doing and perhaps a child's really been taken by that, they could be reading some of that aloud on their sway too. You could use it for publishing, writing, or unit outcome as well. We do written outcomes at the end of each wider curriculum unit. So my children worked on a plague project. Very, very quickly, I might add. It's not a big onerous task and the children are very motivated by doing it. So in terms of approaching this with your children, I'm teaching year 5 and my children handled this incredibly well. They're quite adept at using Teams and using Microsoft 365 platform already. So just as a note, make sure that they're quite good at logging in, using the passwords, getting onto Sway initially anyway, and using Teams sort of interchangeably. That's a good starting point. But otherwise, when they're confident, train up a few children to start with. Take 2 or 3 children, a little group. I think mine would having some time doing another learning task, and I said, well, who would like to learn to do a sway? And there were about 5 or 6 that wanted to join in and do that. So you could do a little club or a small group whilst the others are doing something else, and then those people can teach the others, and they're really good for you trying out new skills first, because if we're using different devices, I'm using a different device to what the children are, I really need to know how their Chromebook works. So it helps me to know exactly how that skill is going to be applied in context. Really, really useful, and it really helps those children with their confidence too. And once the pupils have those skills, they can use a sway for so many different reasons. It's definitely something to develop with your children at school. So try teaching just a few skills at a time. I'm very guilty of saying, right, you can do this, 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 and this, and not actually thinking about how the children are going to remember those. So just like we would normally in a normal lesson, thinking small steps and applying things, modelling it first, then getting the children to have a go themselves. Luckily, it's very, very quick to do. So perhaps start by creating the title, adding images from a Bing search on the right-hand side. Luckily, Sway makes that so easy to do. Adding text cards in, then altering the size of your content items, then adding groups of photos, so practicing adding stacks and grids, slideshows, adding captions as well. Then moving on, the bit that the children like to do the most is changing the design. They will spend most of that, so maybe limit that to start with and teach it a bit later, otherwise you're forever having them manipulating things about. Teach them how to embed videos from their Bing search on the right-hand side in Sway or from YouTube, obviously checking usage rights and things, but using that Bing search is a really safe way of doing that. Then moving on later, skill 6 and 7, a little bit more advanced, uploading their own photos and their videos of work, because that has to be done externally and then uploaded from their Chromebook, or copying and pasting or taking screenshots of assignments, and even adding in voice recording as well. They might seem quite, my children weren't so keen on doing that to start with, but once I got them going on it, they really enjoyed doing it. So here we go. In terms of using this for assessment or even sharing with parents as well, because that's the purpose of this, using it as a portfolio when parents haven't been able to come in and see work in action. You could create an assignment where children can share their link with you in a Word document. It could be also on Class Notebook as well. You could use it for that on the communal page. If you use class emails, children could email those to their teacher if that's how you're using your software. You can unmute pupils in your team so that they can share their link. I just put a post on when I was doing this earlier, and they just shared their link there. It's another skill to use as well. Those links can then be emailed out to parents, however that is working for you. If you want to print any work and export it, then it's your 3 little dots in the top right hand corner, and then export, and then either choose Word or PDF. Either one of those is fine. Word is probably more useful for printing because you can resize the images, and then that can just be printed out for books as a lovely outcome, or you could even put the link as a QR code. This is Gemma's fab idea that I hadn't thought of. Generating a QR code for that work, and then if somebody wants to see that work, they can scan the QR code and then view it as it was meant to be seen, because as we know, Sway is to be seen to be believed. You need to see it in action rather than in a book, for sure.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Virginia, and again especially for like turning that into something real.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Oh, we've got some examples.
Yeah, we have got some examples. I mean, would you like me to share some of my real life examples?
Oh, yes, please.
Yeah. Shall I share that with you? I will do that right now. So what I've got here, oh, my mouse has gone to sleep. I've got some examples of my ones that we've created today. So these are for English, actually, a really lovely purposeful learning here. So this is a really nice example. You can see that they've had fun adding images in. This is something I've been thinking about for such a long time, and when you're doing this in Word, it's actually really hard for the children to find their images, put them in the right place. Well, Sway does that for you, so you've got it looking really great, and it's lovely to see the children so motivated by how it actually looks in the end. It looks like a professional piece of writing, and I think that that's incredibly valuable and needs to be used as much as possible. This little girl's been using her italics quite a lot in here as well, and I think that the outcome here was really good. Here's another one, exploring using the images, putting in subheadings. There's so many assessment points, objectives that I could tick off here. We've got captions going on, so this little guy has put his into a stack instead, so he's got his arguments in a lovely stack. Really enjoying his images there, absolutely enormous. Really effective way of demonstrating that learning, and that could be used in absolutely every subject I can think of, from maths to science to English. I think that there's no limits to how that could be used.
Brilliant. Thanks, Virginia. That's actually grown, seeing them as well, it's grown even more than what I could have imagined.
Yeah.
So that does bring us towards the end. Dan, do you want to talk a little bit more about the Demonstrator School programme for us, please?
I'll just say a few words, because it is, quite an important thing as a group that we're doing. We're not only delivering on phase 2 of the Demonstrator School programme, but a part of the central office is devoted to actually running the programme. The two parts are kept very separate, so we don't know much about, the part that runs the programme, but we're still delivering phase 2 to schools, and that includes schools within United Learning and outside of United Learning. So there's a combination of delivery methods that we'll use, and schools sign up for a range of different supports. But because we are allowed to do a number of schools from United Learning, we can't exclusively do United Learning. We have a set target that we're allowed to deliver to with our own group schools. But it's worth mentioning it now on this live session, and for those accessing the recording, that if you would like a more long-term support over the coming year, then you can sign up to this programme. And that the various themes we're looking at are supporting recovery, reducing teacher workload, kind of augmenting school improvement plans with the use of technology, resource management of technology, and making curriculums accessible and inclusive through the use of technology. Now, if that sounds like something that you think your school would be really interested in, then you can sign up following the link there. And obviously we'd want you to choose United Learning as your support provider, and then we can be in touch with you to work out that. The fact is, we will come to certain schools anyway and recommend signing up, because developing digital strategy is quite a big focus for the group this year and the following year. So it may be, even if you don't sign up, you'll end up being involved in this program. But we can't do all schools, but we can certainly do a fair number of them. And the likes of Virginia and Gemma, who are on this call, will be actually supporting us delivering the program through little inputs like you've already seen today. So it's not just Gemma and myself and the central team. It is actually hearing from our lead practitioners as well.
Brilliant, thanks, Dan. So that brings me on to the end. Before we open up the floor for Q&A, and just in case anyone else has got anything else they want to share or see, we do need to say thank you obviously to Bruce for the Arbor work, Virginia, Joe, Caroline, David and Louise for their contributions today, and Chris Jackson, I think he's left now, but joining in with us. Also, the next session as part of this CPD session that Matthew's put together is going to be Thursday the 17th of June, and that's looking at the new curriculum for 2021-2022, including the updates and next steps. It'd be a really good one to attend or pick up on afterwards. So I will stop sharing my screen and I'll open up the floor to see if anyone has any questions or anything at all. Thank you again, Virginia, and of course, Dan. I will put the link to the EdTech programme just in case you want to, please then share it with anyone you know, even outside of UL. And it's schools and colleges as well that we can support.
Yeah, actually, hi Hazels are on the call. Emma is on the call, and so is Laura from there. We are already started that program with them. So hi Emma. So we had one of our calls this morning. So yeah, schools are, some of our United Learning schools are already started, but certainly the invite is there for other schools as well. Any questions though?
Hopefully everyone's got a little nugget of something to take away. I know that I want to get sharing on working on the portfolios. Emma's like, yeah. Emma, what do you think about those for your lot?
I've got so many things whirring through my brain at the moment. I've been met down this morning and then this. It's going to be hard to prioritise, but yes, I really like that idea. The idea of showcasing, and it's just deciding which route to go first. But they look fabulous. So excellent, Virginia.
Yeah, and I have to say that that piece of work took an hour. So we've been working on those for 2 weeks, and it's really quick. I'm sure you'll know when you're working on like Microsoft Word or something, how long it takes to format something for children. But that was an hour's worth of work. I didn't think they'd get it done, and they did. So it's quite impressive how quick it is for them.
I was talking to Dan about some training that I've devised for TAs, and we had a day where it was Eid, so we had very few children. So I delivered the TA training to the children, and they absolutely took to it. So they could all do a sway, very basic sway, but still, I think they took to it better than I did when I first was introduced to sways. And they sent me form questionnaires, which were absolutely hilarious, because I just said, any questions you want to ask, as long as you keep them teacher friendly. Any questions? Oh, they were so funny. But yeah, an hour and a half lesson, and they've done a sway and a form. So
Amazing.
They absorb. So yes, very excited.
And those reluctant writers as well. Like, I think it's because it's so visual, and they can do the audio. So they can even, I know obviously we're big fans of Immersive Reader and Dictate, but they can even on their sway record what they want to say, listen to it and write at the same time without then needing to move. So it's that integration for them.
Absolutely.
And second language learners, like, they can even create it in their first language and then use that to showcase their work, which is obviously something that we quite find difficult as well. Yeah,
the more you do it, I think the more potential you'll find in it as well. It's really exciting.
Yeah, Laura's making the point about the curriculum newsletters, how that's a really interesting idea to make it engaging. I mean, the advantage of that, Virginia, is that once you've produced them, they're kind of there, and parents can access them on demand. So you can launch a sway about how you're teaching maths in Key Stage 2 or across the whole school. You can have a development, maybe have some videos embedded in the sway, and then it's kind of there for teachers, and not teachers, I mean parents, governors, any stakeholders to review your approach. So I think it's a really good idea.
And the feedback we've had from that's been really positive from parents. They really like them because it's so easy to view on a mobile device, on a PC, whatever, and it's very visually engaging, and it looks very slick as well, much more so than paper newsletters did, I think.
Yeah, I'm thinking the amount of times, in the past where you've kind of run curriculum evenings and you get a fairly limited turnout, and you end up having to repeat things lots of times. Well, to put it in some sort of digital format is no more work, and it is of such lasting value that you will get a year's or more's use out of it before you change your approaches and update it. So yeah.
Laura's just put in the chat about like face-to-face workshops, and so I've just said actually Vicky Chatterton at Abbey Hay, that she put a reading workshop, or someone from her school put a reading workshop together through Sway. So because you can integrate your videos, actually you can get your video absolutely spot on without having to present to your parents, redo it, pop it in a Sway. They can watch it in their own time. You don't have to sit there and be like, oh, no parents have turned up again. Like, let's see what's it's there. And it's kind of, opens up a few more doors. Gotta love a Sway.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, Dan, I think unless Gemma's got any questions.
No, just fabulous. I've made lots of notes.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you. Right. Well, thanks again, everyone.